antique steel fire pit for just $49.98. Or your choice of 27-foot tie-down ratchet straps, just $7.99 a piece. And don't miss taking a spin on the baddest mowers at our Lawn Mower Rodeo, Saturday, June 18th from 10 till 2. Must be 16 or older to ride. Shop now at RuralKing.com or your neighborhood Rural King, America's farm and home store.
When it really counts, depend on the source for the latest weather updates, keeping you ahead of the storm. 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Today we'll have sun and clouds with a couple of heavy thunderstorms this afternoon. There can be ponding on streets and highways. High today 88 to 92. Then look for a thunderstorm in spots this evening. Otherwise clearing tonight, low 72 to 75. Tuesday will be partly sunny. High tomorrow 86 to 90. And partly sunny Wednesday, high 88 to 91. Thunderstorm or two Thursday and Friday. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Holly Holden.
Here's the latest from the College of Central Florida. On Tuesday, June 21st at 8:35 a.m., Marie Davidson and Tavis Douglas will talk about all the exciting things happening with agribusiness and equine studies at the CF Vintage Farm. That's Tuesday the 21st at 8:35 a.m. on Higher Education Happenings. Vintage Farm is located just a few miles from the center of Ocala and Interstate 75, but a universe away from distractions. So be sure to listen and learn. It's information you can use from CF and your friends at WOCA, The Source.
This is Ocala Talks with Tom Schmidt, bringing stories that are important to our community in and around Ocala. Plus, of course, a splash of sports as well. Now, here's your host, Tom.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks on a Monday. So I'm going to ask you to explain something political because a lot of people may not understand it. And it's the thought process that when you see a certain thing on the ballots, that the incumbents probably had something to do with it. And we're talking about write-in candidates.
Yes. Let's talk about write-in candidates.
Explain why the prevailing thought is with write-in candidates, a lot of people think that is a lot of times people think they're usually friends of the incumbent that were put in there for a reason.
To close out the race. In other words, during a primary, if there's a write-in candidate, which I'm not sure I understand why this is the law, but if there's a write-in candidate, it closes out that primary then to independents and Democrats voting in that race. So
only Republicans are allowed to vote.
Only Republicans are allowed to vote it. So if there was no write-in, then everybody could vote in it during a primary. That still doesn't make sense. No. So I don't. But generally, what happens is a friend of a candidate is thrown in there as a write-in candidate. It doesn't cost anything. You file your paperwork and you become a write-in candidate, meaning there's now a blank line under the people that have qualified, and that name has to be written in there specifically as listed in the paperwork. Here, this year...
It does away with the 50+1, I thought. I thought it had something to do with doing away with the 50+1.
You need to ask
I'll get Wesley on to explain that.
Because I'm not sure. But wait, so we've always had write-in candidates.
Always.
It's unprecedented that one would ever win. This year...
What do you mean unprecedented?
I mean...
It has never happened in the state of Florida.
Has it ever
Republican
happened
or Democrat?
Well, I was going to Google this on the way out, and I meant to. We need to find out if a write-in candidate is plausibly won.
Yeah, the lady McCuskey, the representative from Alaska, she won as a write-in candidate.
Only you would know stupid stuff like
that. Yeah, she won the last election as a write-in candidate.
A woman in Alaska has won as a write-in candidate, but never in Marion County or the state of Florida.
Never in the state of Florida.
So we had two people after qualifying ended last Friday at noon, all of a sudden come literally out of the woodwork. And we were thinking Kathy and Carl put their buddies up to close out the race so they didn't have to send flyers to Democrats or independents, and it would be much more less expensive for them to run their campaign
a general election.
In general. In the primary, because then they don't have to do mailings to everybody.
Right.
They only have to mail to super voter Republicans, and it's much more cost effective. But within 30 minutes of the qualifying on Friday afternoon, Gina Capone, a write-in against Kathy, shows up on My Political Forum announcing her campaign launch. She's launched a campaign.
But these are not people who were put up to do so.
No, because I reached out to her, and Jack Stackman, Patty Reed, and I were all like, wait a minute, you weren't Kathy's buddy who closed out the seat for her? And she was like, no. Herself and Brian Donnelly are part of the Horse Parks Forever
Horse Farms Forever,
whatever it is. They're horse people, and they have an
Preservation
agenda.
area and
they
everything.
want to keep farmland preservation. I mean, they have a nice platform. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I just wish they would have qualified like legitimate candidates and gotten on the ballot either by petition or by fee.
Well, no, yeah, but you're saying they're not. Write-in candidates are legitimate candidates.
Yeah, but their name is not on
different,
the ballot.
right.
In other words, they really have to spend a ton of money to market the fact that you have to write the name exactly.
You actually,
correct.
and if you spell the name wrong,
it's not
by
doesn't
one
count.
letter, it doesn't count.
If you just put Gina, it doesn't count.
Nope.
Or Brian, it doesn't count. So people don't understand how difficult it is to, I mean, I haven't heard from Brian Donnelly what his campaign is, but Gina has been very vocal on the Marion County Political Forum of what her platform is, and she has a very good platform.
By the way, big deal coming up this week because the county commission is going to discuss
Tuesday
what to do at the Jockey Club.
Right.
Because the Roberts, the owners of the World Equestrian Center in Golden, Ocala, now own the Jockey Club, and their desire is to put a 200-unit hotel out there, a RV campground out there, and it's going to create a situation where 318 would, in the state it's in now, would be overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then that goes back to the farmland preservation.
And it's right in the middle of the farmland preservation area.
So these two write-ins, that's their platform, has a lot to do with that, and you should get to know them. They're viable candidates. They've made it very difficult for themselves, but if it happened in Alaska, it could happen in Marion County.
Well,
I mean,
it just shows you though that there's many ways to get involved in the political scene, and my wife called during the break. We talked during the break, and she goes, this isn't just a Marion County problem. The big money controls, and we had talked about that. Big money controls the presidential election. Kat Kamak didn't get elected because she didn't spend any money.
Right.
Val Demings isn't in the House of Representatives because she didn't spend any money.
Well, and remember when a sheriff's race, it was a big deal if they raised $150,000 in a sheriff's race. Now they're raising $300,000 in a sheriff's race and $150,000 in county commission races. So it's just getting.
They raised over $200,000 collectively for a $550 a month job called the mayor of Ocala.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Hey, between the two candidates, there was over $200,000 raised and spent.
Yeah.
For a job that pays $550 a month. Yeah. Oh, wait, you get a gas card.
And do you get a car lounge?
You get a car lounge.
And
too.
A phone?
Yeah.
And a phone.
Yeah,
and a phone.
So, yeah.
Yeah, money influences everything.
So which is more important, or are they both dead heat for the most important? Term limits or contribution limits?
Well, there are contribution limits that are skirted around.
Right,
so,
that's what I mean. There's loopholes to the contribution limits.
There's loopholes in the election laws as a whole. The residency issue, there's no one to enforce that, although we have
By the way, and you can qualify to run. You just have to be living in the district if you win.
That's what makes no sense to me either. School board residency regulations and county commission residency are two different things. County commission, you can be living anywhere while you run. If you win, you have 6 weeks to move into your district. Right. School board, you must reside in your district to run for that seat.
Right.
And city council, you have to live in that district for 1 year.
Right.
So they're all different, but no one enforces them. So why are they even laws on the books? That aggravates me. But getting back to why we don't have a lot of people running, or why people are.
By the way,
running,
it is a thankless job.
It's a horrible job.
I
tell people all the time when I work with them, like, if you can't handle campaigning, you're gonna hate being elected.
Because that may play a big part in it. I don't know that plays all of it, but it's a thankless job.
Yeah. I think what happens too is people that get in, they sit down with people who've either served or whatever, and I try not to be too overwhelming when I talk to people, but I also like to see that they're prepared and know what they're up against. And we've said it. This came up during city council with the Ty Schlichter and the bar fight, and him going to people's houses and threatening people, and all of that stuff. It's a tough road of campaigning. It's very hard, especially with social media, keyboard warriors. There's a lot of hateful people out there. You got to have thick skin, but you have to be prepared when you get into office. and understand that only 50% of the people are going to like what you're doing, if you're lucky.
If that many.
If you're lucky. You know, Barry Mansfield was a great example of that. Right away, he brought out exactly what he campaigned on, and he did very good, but then he was met with resistance and hatred, and it was overwhelming for him. But it's like, 6 months, you won't care anymore. You won't care.
You'll move on. You got another issue. You got to move on.
Where as long as you're doing what you feel right in your heart is the right thing to do, you get past it.
When I first started in this job with Buddy Martin as his board operator, sometimes commentator.
I remember.
When I first started with that, I would watch Twitter and I would watch Facebook. The people, and we were doing sports then. We had not jumped over to the realm of WOCA where we're at now. We were just doing sports then. We were at another radio station. And the people that said this no-account hack, what the hell does he know about baseball? And they would put these things on Twitter and Facebook and everything. I wanted to fight everybody. I was like,
but you called
I was like, why don't you? I would type back. Why don't you meet me?
Yeah.
Tell me that instead of typing it on the keyboard, there, jackass. I would do stuff like that. And Buddy pulled me to the side one time. He goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Why are you engaging?"
Yeah.
I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Do you know those people? Do you care what they think?" I go, "No, but other people read it." He goes, "Do you care what other people think? Because if you did, you hadn't lived your life that way." Right. And he pointed out to me that all of a sudden I was worried about what a computer screen said. Mm-hmm. And so then that's when I started my campaign. And people, it draws more ire than anything else I do, because now people just crush me. They'll get on Facebook and crush me, and they'll send me emails that crush me, and I respond the exact same way to every one of them. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. See, and my response is always, I'd have to care.
See, but
I'd have to care,
I have a very good friend.
Don't.
I have a very good friend that was a Florida wide receiver, holds the record for most touchdowns in a career at Florida. He caught a ball against Kentucky that won a game. Huge guy. Dad's a pharmacist. Big guy. Big history in the history of the Florida program. I had to have a conversation with him. I said, "Bro, why do you worry about what they say about you on Twitter? You're this guy. You can walk into any place in Gainesville you want to, and nobody cares what anybody on Twitter says. You can walk. You work for ESPN. You got all this big. You own a radio station at the time. Well, why do you care?"
The even better part is when you not on a grand scale, but on a local scale. Like I have one. I think the president of my hater club is a local liberal. And he was at the King of the Wing, and he was so delightfully nice. And I was like,
he spoke to you quite a while.
He did, and we had a nice little chit chat. And I thought
he spoke to me 5 minutes, and then I shoved the sheriff off on him.
But so they're not as evil in real life as they are on the keyboard,
No, they're nowhere near as evil in real life.
That's the funny part, because I always say it, and you're this way too. We are firm believers of we'll say it to your face as well as behind your back. You don't have to worry. If I'm saying it behind your back, you can bet your ass I'm going to say it to your face.
Yeah, I have no problem.
But yeah.
That's the thing. If I'm going to say it on the radio, I will say it to you. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Somebody said one time I got on Facebook, like last week, I got called a white privileged racist.
Oh, wow.
That didn't understand the history of Juneteenth.
Wow.
Because I went on a tirade about Juneteenth should be the holiday, Emancipation. January 1st, 1863 is when the Emancipation was issued. Mm-hmm. Juneteenth was just when a Union general showed up in Galveston and said, "Folks, y'all hadn't heard the news? You hadn't been a slave for 2 years. War's over." The wrong holiday. And I have no problem with Juneteenth being a holiday. I just think the Emancipation Proclamation should be a holiday as well.
So it's not.
It's not
as far as a
Juneteenth.
federal.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got called a white racist, and and I just, okay, thanks for listening. Because it doesn't bother me anymore. But that's why I could be great. I'd be good at running for public office, because nothing anybody would say would bother me. "Oh, you did a lot of cocaine in your 20s. Tell me something I don't know, pal."
Yes, I did.
Yeah. You were a man whore when you were in college.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that. Mm-hmm. You've had 2 failed marriages, which led me to the greatest woman I've ever met in my life. None of that would bother me. Where I would get into a problem is, hey, Sparky, the last 4 people that came to the podium said that same BS. Sit down.
Enough.
Next.
Enough.
That's where I would get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's where
Zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah,
hey, I know it's a 3-minute limit, but you've talked a minute and 25 seconds, and I already want to beat you up.
Yeah.
Move over.
Yeah.
Next.
We're done. We're done. We're done here.
That's where I would have a problem with elected office. So, but a lot of people don't realize that just asking for money, which is difficult, or just having the wherewithal to have the money doesn't make you a candidate, though. You still have to be able to get past some. Look, it's not easy to stand up in front of people and talk.
I said this, I think, on the forum the other day, is I'm concerned that we're going to see less and less quality people step out to run for office if we're not careful. And that goes the same thing for the big money influence or, whatever it may be. People giving out endorsements too soon. They're skewing these elections, and there's got to be a better way to pull the baby lambs into slaughter to run without, upsetting them. I mean, people are just you got to have thick skin, and you got to have the right mindset of why you're doing it. And this goes back to something I say all the time. If you're running for office because you need a job, then don't run because you're not serving for the right reason.
David Moore.
If you're running for office because you have the passion to serve and the ability and the time to give to it, then you're the right kind of candidate. And maybe time is a big part of it.
And that's the huge part. To me, the most important thing you said there is you got to make sure you have the time.
People ask me that all the time.
Don Browning said, I didn't realize it was a full-time job.
Yeah, well, what'd you
It's
think?
not designed as a full-time job, but you have everything you got to read and all the stuff you got to know, especially when you come in it because you're taking somebody's seat. Right. You got to play catch-up and everything.
Yeah. And we talked about this where I've been saying, politicians need to be heard and not seen as much as they are. We're seeing this trend where they're everywhere and they're shaking hands and they're kissing babies and they're just absolutely everywhere doing everything. But that's not necessarily the job. That's part of campaigning to get elected. That's not the position. We want you, in the office, at the county buildings, out on the field, in the school system, at the schools, learning and knowing what's going on and making changes. And we want to hear about those changes you're making. I don't want to see you kissing, bunny hugging the governor. I mean, that's great. We all love him, but I want to know what you did last week for work at your position.
And here's my problem, and it's a fine line that you have to balance on. There's a commissioner, I won't say any name, but there's a commissioner who had a job that was their primary job that took them away from being a commissioner quite a bit. Is that fair to the taxpayers that your job takes you out of the country?
I don't know if
or takes you
exactly. I don't know if we're talking about the same one who's now taking a full-time job in another county. That's yes. I mean, it allows for that.
Right.
But are you giving 100% to Marion County, who's paying you $94,000 a year?
And it's one of those things that you need to make sure you can do the commitment you make to the voters. Yeah. 'Cause that's what you're doing. You're not making a commitment to the staff, county staff. You made a commitment to the voters that for 4 years you will do their bidding.
It's no different than we pulled public record on one of them who's still serving, and she had 64 absences. Come on, can you keep your job if you missed 64 days in 4 years? I mean, that's how many? 15 days a year?
I mean, I take every federal holiday, every holiday I can off. So Martone would tell you I miss about 48 or 50 every 4 years.
You're not a full-time employee here, though, are you?
Oh, you'd have no idea.
And you're not making $90,000 a year, are you?
I definitely am not making that. I'm definitely not making that.
It's a little different. Like I remember campaigning in 2006 with Randy Harris, who was a then county commissioner, and I think he was going on his unheard of 4th term, which he did not win. And the question was asked of both him and I. How many days had we missed while serving in office? And Randy said out of his 12 years, he'd missed one time because his dad had passed away. At that time, I answered the question, said I hadn't missed anything. 3 months later, my mom died, and my mom died on a school board meeting day. So I did miss that day, and okay, that's credible, but to just
Suck it up, Sue. What's the problem?
Just keep missing stuff like Don Browning. He's been absent a lot.
Well, he's got tractor restoration. He's got tractors he's restoring. He's got his aviation that he's in love with. He does have businesses he runs. I'm sure he checks their emails. But anyway, that's not here nor there.
Some people are more important than others. It's just that. Some people are just more important than others.
Part of what we're saying, you and I and people like us are part of that problem as well, though. Because I'm not going to stop my opinions and critiques just because I know somebody or I'm friends with somebody. If I could separate the two, because I have to with my job. I have very good friends of mine that are county commissioners, school board members, and city council members. But in the realm of wearing the hat of county commissioner, school board member, city council member, I can call them to the mat all I can without any kind of false sense of that. Oh, should I have done that? My friend and the county commissioner or the school board member or the city council member, my friend and that member of the elected body are two separate entities in the way I view it. But, they have to put up with, and that's the other thing in local elections, much more than, and you know this because you were an elected official, you run into people in Publix and in Walmart and at the beauty salon that they want to talk to the person they elected. They don't want to talk to Sue Mosley.
That's right. And it doesn't matter what day or time. I used to have people call my phone in the middle of the night that, just when when you have an issue, you have an issue.
Kent Gwynn says his phone is rang at 3 a.m. with a lady called him. This is in 2013, 2014. A lady called him at 3 a.m. She had been up distressed for the better part of 2 days about an issue. She called. The last thing she did is, I just called the mayor, see if he can help me. And at 3 a.m. she calls him.
And he answered.
He answered. Mm-hmm. But here's the other thing. It wasn't his problem. It was a county issue, which he then, the next day, got her in touch with the people she needed to and took care of it. Mm-hmm. But then he got woke up at 3 a.m. to deal with an issue that wasn't even his purview.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had 2 or 3 occasions, 2 for sure, where, it was about a child being harmed in some manner, and I did answer the phone, but they were police issues. It wasn't a school board issue, but, I comforted the person as best I could and helped them get where they needed to get. And, that's part of the passion to serve.
While you were elected, did you have people, because you were in one of the things you did towards the end of your term, we talked about it, was you ran a nightclub. Did you have people while you were at work doing your job that would come to you and say, hey, I need to talk to you about something with the school board?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I mean, I was open, like they knew where to find me.
Right.
They knew where to find me. It's like the time I walked in and Jackie Porter was standing in the kitchen of the bar. She'd come in the back door. I'm like, what is happening here? That was going to go down as a bar fight. Yeah. That was going to be declassified as school board.
I'll be honest with you.
Go down as a bar fight.
I'll be honest with you. When I broke into radio in 2010 and we moved to WOCA and went more community oriented, I lived for you and Jackie Porter.
Did you?
It made my day easy.
Rogers.
Brad Rogers told me. Yeah. Brad Rogers goes, that was some easy, that year and a half was some easy stuff.
I still, one of my favorite stories ever is we had just had a board meeting and I was standing out with Brad Rogers, the press, he's going to write an editorial, whatever he's going to do, and he's interviewing me, and she come out of that backboard door,
ready to go,
waving her finger and rolling, yelling and carrying on, and I looked over at Brad, I said, I'm going to have to clean this up. And I said, if I beat that are you going to write about it? And he goes, Miss Mosley, I'm going to have to write about it. I had books in my hand. I threw them down. I said, get ready to write the story. And I went running over there.
Didn't
care.
That was good time back in the late teens, early teens.
I remember that video of her and I fighting over. She was trying to accuse Jim Yancey, who's probably one of the finest people I've ever known. She was trying to accuse Jim of nepotism, something, and it was stupid. And
because he hired his sons to coach baseball.
Well, she had the wrong wife. She didn't even know what the hell she was talking about.
She was talking about. I remember this. It was Philip's wife. She was talking about.
She was trying to go after Mark Vianello's wife, whose name was Shannon, and they both were. And she was thinking it was Jim's daughter, and it wasn't. And so I shut her down, and we get in a fight, back and forth. And that video aired on the side column of the Star Banner online for probably 10 years.
It was there. It was there. I know.
It's probably still there.
I bet you can still find it on the Star Banner.
It's still there because I think I finally waved my hand and said, "Look, are you done? Because I'm done with you. I'm done." So.
But yeah, it was easy when you two were on the board together. It was easy.
It was must-see TV. It was
remember,
quality entertainment.
I remember.
But you know what? That's when people did stuff.
That's when I
made
first
a difference.
That's when I first realized that you did not have to have a degree in education to run for superintendent.
Why? Oh, because she ran. Yeah, that's right.
And an 18-year-old ran.
That's right. Yeah.
Who had hacked into the superintendent's emails.
As his mom or something.
Yeah.
The mom was a principal. And he took down the whole system.
Marion County politics.
And
you gotta love it.
Quality candidates. We've seen. This is what's
it.
happening. We're getting less and less quality candidates.
That reminds me. I need to reach out to Heidi. I hadn't talked to Heidi in a while.
Yeah,
I need to reach out to Heidi.
Off the face of the earth.
I need to reach out. Hey, Sue, thanks for being here. You took up a whole hour. You wouldn't shut up.
I know. Well, we have a lot to talk about, Tom, when we don't see each other for 2 days.
So we're gonna So we're gonna do your show next Monday.
We are.
We'll
do
air
Monday.
it sometime next week.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
looking forward to it.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Ocala Talks. You're listening to 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. It says WOCAMon.